All right, one of the things I find is interesting on some of these old cars when we are working on them is this kind of thing right here. Now what has happened, see what had happened is this thing has seen an impact. The reason I know it's seen an impact is it's got a nice little groove going this way and a nice little groove going this way. So that tells me that someone was lazy enough not to clean the clips, because they did this taking it off and they did this putting it on. Good stuff. Now what I'm going to show you real quick is just how to remove these. What we're talking about this week is how to get all this straightened out before we put the fender on. What we're also going to be doing is coming up with a video down the road about how to fix these spots like this, where you have the rust, where they basically put the two pieces of sheet steel together on the cars. It's not very uncommon at all anymore to see this on a Mustang or a Cougar. So we'll come back later with an episode on that. I'm going to try to figure out who I can get to weld the underside, because I don't want to do it. I'm hoping this one isn't bad enough that we have to go in and actually cut any more than the top. Be that as it may, we'll get to that a little later on. Not covering that today. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and take this clip off. I will use a flat blade screwdriver to do this sort of thing. And basically just pop them out. Now, what I've got here is you can see that this one is rusty inside, and there was also, looks like some sealer of some type on this that was causing a problem. I don't know if it was tape or whatever from when they were painting it, but this pretty much sucks, and this is why you had the problem with it eating up the fender top right there on the inner fender. I'm going to take that out and set my clip off to one side. And I'm going to take the rest of these out, and we'll save our clips. We're going to reuse these probably. But I want the clips out of the way for when we're doing the work on this fender. That one is a tricky one. I'm actually going to leave that one in play because of where it's at. This one we do want to remove though. Sometimes you will have to lift up on them or to get them to let go. Now if you want to retain these clips, what you'll want to do is to go in and just chase them out with a tap, and then you can reuse them. Sometimes I'll even go in and put some kind of penetrating oil on there so they'll stay nice and they won't gunk up with rust after the fact, because this is a high splash area. This is an area that sees a lot of water if you get caught out in inclement weather, because a lot of us don't drive these cars in inclement weather anymore, but some of us do. All right, so the next thing I'm going to start working on is what I've got going on up here on the top of this fender, where we have a lot of drop off and pickup, or we should say peek up and drop off. That's a joke. If you get the joke, put something in the comments below. Somebody has already been into this fender before. I can see little marks on the top of the fender right here. I don't know whether those are grind marks or what, but there's some there. And there's a few back here. It was a very half-hearted attempt to get this thing to line back in the way this should be sitting, because this is diving here, it's high here, it's low here, it's peaked here, and there's a little bit of bubblage around the spot welts here. I don't know whether that is a direct occurrence from this. Weirdly, inside of the inner fenders right here, nice and flat. I don't feel anything that's causing me to think that we've got a problem there, other than there's about 17 holes in there that shouldn't be there. Nothing over toward this. There's no pooching going on. I don't feel anything up toward the front. The one thing I do see that there is a lot of bending going on right here on top of the radiator core support. And you may wonder, why are you doing this? What's the difference on that? All this is going to affect how the new fender lays on the car. So you want to make sure you check all of that before you go any further. If you're putting a new fender on and you try to slap it on a bunch of old metal like this, you're going to end up fighting a lot, and you're going to have a lot of waves and things in here that are going to be seen when you have the inner fender with the hood open. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to grab my hammers and go in and start working this. All right, I'm going to put my old man glasses on because I want to be able to actually see what I'm doing here. This also is exhibiting some score marks from people trying to take that clip off with an impact. I'm using this hammer. I don't even know what this hammer is called. I am not a body man, but I just enjoy doing this kind of stuff. But this hammer right here is a good one because it's got the small point end on the back side of it. And body working, what I've learned from a lot of body guys that I've talked to is that anything can be a tool. If it works to do what you need, it's not stupid. And this one could be a good one to use on what I'm doing here. And the reason for that is, you'll notice that this area is kind of dimpled in from the factory. This is down like it's supposed to be to clear that clip and the top of the clip. But it's also pulled up right now. This is not sitting where it's supposed to. And a tool like a normal hammer, I could probably get a blow in there pretty well. But I'm pretty bad at that sort of thing, so I'm going to use this one with a heel dolly on the back side of it. Now these are pretty trashy looking. You can get a really nice set. Harbor Freight sells a really nice set. Cam's used them, and he gives them a thorough thumbs up. Whack on it a little bit and feel it. Your fingers are your best friends because there's going to be things that you're going to feel that you're not going to see. What I'm doing here is I'm just proving to you that you don't have to be a master body tech to do this sort of thing. You can be a guy like me and just make it better by going in and playing around with it a little bit. And yes, you're going to nick every bit of paint off of the car doing this, so count on the idea that you're going to have to go in and do a repaint on the top part of the inner fender. But since the owner on this car is going to do a repaint anyway, I'm not super worried about it. That's pretty darn good there. Now we're going to get on the dastardly stuff because I won't really be able to see what I'm doing too much. I'm going to come with up strikes on the bottom side of it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop the heel dolly off every once in a while just to make sure I'm not doing anything bad to my inner fender. If you've got anything laying around loose in these inner fenders, it's going to fall. And I want some hammers with some pretty good heft to them to do this sort of work because you're going to end up needing that heft in order to get a really good strike out of these. Because you're going through a double layer here. I'm putting pressure downward on the heel dolly and I'm hammering upward. Trying to get that to come up and I'm just banging that corner too hard. Now I've switched over to the blade side of this. Putting pressure up from the bottom. And that's probably what we were seeing up here as they were doing some of the same thing. A lot of times body shops are not going to spend a lot of time on the inner fenders because on their mind, a car is not going to have the hood open all the time. So you're not going to see all this stuff underneath here. But with a car that's going to be a show car, you are going to see it because the hood's going to be open, even if you're going to a cruise night. So little details like this can make the difference. You can have a person come up to your car and go, wow, that looks really nice. or they'll start noticing things inside of here like the rust spots and the fact that the inner fender sections here are not flat and straight with the bottom side edge of the fender itself. Still a little bit down right there on that corner. What I'm doing with that kind of a move is I'm actually applying pressure to the bottom side of the fender. That's allowing me to strike it so that it flattens that area out. I'm doing some hammer on and hammer off technique on this too. Hammer on is when you're striking the metal with the hammer and the anvil, if you will, underneath. And then hammer off is when you're striking offhand of it and you're basically trying to move the metal like I just did here where we flatten this out. That's not looking too bad there. All right, I'm going to move on to this here. What we've got going on is there's a crease this way across the VIN number. Don't want to get rid of that. That's really important. That VIN number represents this car, and the bad thing is if this is damaged and you don't really do a really good job of hiding this, and someone from the highway department looks up underneath the car and sees that this has been replaced on a car, you could get yourself into a tremendous amount of trouble because that is the actual VIN for the vehicle on a 1967 on back. 68, the main VIN that they use is inside the windshield, but on the earlier cars it's underneath the fender right here. And this car has a double stamping on it. Some of them I've seen only had singles. But that is very important to keep and to not damage if you can help it. We've got a problem though because our dent runs right through the middle of where this was dimpled. Not that unusual on these. And then it moves on back into here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start working this area right here and mucking around with that metal right there. I'm going to probably nail this first and see if that can make a difference, so to speak, in the way this thing lays. I'm going to try a little bit of off here. Now what I did is I started off light and I moved to a heavier strike. I think the problem we have right now is it looks to me like the front of the radiator core support has been pushed back. That's because if you'll see, you've got two spot welds right here and they're dimpled and moved. It looks like something's hit it here and it caused the core support to move in. With that core support moving in, you've got a fold right here and two sets here. Your average guy is not going to be able to take care of that. To be honest with you, if you're doing this, that's probably something where you say, I got to call time on this one, take it to a body shop and get them to use a porta power to push that out. If you have a porta power, you can try playing with it, but what's going to end up happening is you actually have to overstretch the metal. You have to go out beyond it just a little bit and bring it back. If you want to try it on your car, that's fine because, quite frankly, the radiator core supports are available, as are the inner fenders. So if you crunch up this entire corner, you can replace it, but we're trying to not have to replace it because we don't want to have to impact the VIN. Okay? So that's what you're dealing with right here. I don't know if we're going to be able to bring this out a lot just simply because of the fact that this is such a problem. flipped over the hammer. I'm going to try striking it with a smaller area, see if I can get that to push. Again, I'm using an off hammer technique. My heel dolly is right here and my hammer strikes are right here. What I want to do is try to move that metal up, which we've done a little bit here. Just realized I can't see anything and I'm squinting. Probably because I don't have my old man glasses on. Oh, so much better. All right, now one of the things that you can run into on these cars is a lot of junk on the underside of the inner fender. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go in here with another hammer and just clean some of that junk off. It'd be better to be able to go in and actually scrape this or wire wheel this underside. This one's not too bad. I have seen some of them where this is bad enough that you have to go in and do that before you can do any amount of work on it. It's actually looking pretty darn good there. Okay. All right, so I think what we're fixing to see is that as soon as I start working this, it's going to move this down this panel toward the radiator core support problem that we know we have. Off camera, we tried doing a strike on this to see if we could pull it that way. We can't. That's really more a job for a porta-power than it is for a hammer strike, because you want slow, steady force on it, not a sudden strike trying to move it. It's just not going to move in that way realistically. So what I'm going to try to do, and I can't guarantee that this is going to absolutely work. Luckily, the owner on this car is not going to be doing a full-on show car with it, but I'm going to try to go in now and actually strike this edge here. I'm going to pull this off so you can see it. I'm going to strike from the bottom on this right here so that this peak comes up at that point. And the problem we have is the panel drops here, and it also drops here. I have a very narrow area of being able to strike between those 2 points without losing the definition of this drop here. We're going to try it. Let's hope for the best. What I'm going to do with this one is I'm going to take and lay my dolly out flat on top, and I'm going to use this point here to get what I need out of it from the backside. Luckily, this is a little bit thinner in metal. Now what I'm going to try to do is actually angle the hammer a little bit. See, that's not even really moving much. It's moving a little bit, but not much. All right, now what's going on is this is actually creasing more because this is not going to move. You have 2 layers of metal here. It's the shock tower, so it's a very thick set of steel on the underside. It's not going to go anywhere, and it's not going to go anywhere down here because you have, again, the same issue. You have a double layer of metal down on the radiator core support as well. So I'm worried that we're going to start folding, and I think I can even see the beginnings of the folding here. It's dropping here and it's poking up here. If I get this to go any further, I may end up with a problem up here with it folding this metal in right along that line right there. I'm going to keep working and see what we get, but right now we got some issues. Not subscriptions yet. We're just at issues at this point. I'll go and try to work this other section a little bit. Told you things would fall. All right, I'm going to try and drop this big section here a little more. All right, so this, I have to be careful when I'm banging on this. I don't want to take and lose this drop for the clip. So I have to be real cognizant of what I'm doing. Still got that problem right there. What I'm doing is I'm trying to hook the dolly into that lip right there so I know where I'm at when I'm moving things around. And yes, I did turn it around to the flat blade side of it for a couple strikes. All right, now you'll notice that this metal right here is diving way up underneath. That's good in a way, because what that tells me is that we've moved this panel into a pretty decent spot from where it was at. I still have a problem right here with a little bit of a pinch on that corner there, and this is still pooched up a little bit. So I'll probably have to go in and work this section right here a little bit more. This is still kicked up in the center a good bit, and we've got a little bit of a dive from the crease that I was worried about before right here. Luckily, it didn't do a lot of impact down the rest of the panel. Everything's pretty much stayed right where it was at. What I will probably do with this here in a minute is I'm going to go in and kiss this with a grinding wheel, and I'm going to let Cam come in and weld this, because he's not done anything today. He's been sitting around playing Tetris or something on his phone. So we're going to put him into play here in a minute. But I'm going to continue working this, seeing if I can get this to play out a little bit better, and then I'll go in and get all this and start making my movements on here to try to get this to lay over so that we can weld this in, because right now that's a spot that's going to create some racket possibly when you're driving it down the road. But back to the whacking. Doing a little bit of hammer off on that to try to get it to lay better. This is going to be a problem no matter what I do for being able to get that to lay straight. Probably what I should do is to get something that I can put on the back side of it here to try to bring that back in and have somebody help hold that in play. Yeah, I'm going to start deforming the metal here pretty quick if I'm not careful. All right, I'm going to try moving to a different hammer. I'm going to use my point hammer real quick here to see if I can get this to do what I want it to do. That's about as flat as I'm going to make that. All right, now that's the final movement on that. And I can look at my fender here and see that we are way over on it. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to grind this edge, and I'm hoping that I can get this to form back into position. It's not going to be the way it was, but it may be a little bit better than it is, so to speak. All right, that's all I'm going to do for this week. We were going to go ahead and finish up with the welding and the cutting and showing you how to do the stuff on the panel right here, but we can't because something has happened between here and the house. I don't know what it is, but our circuit breaker for this building right now, because we're running the cord that we showed you on the building episode a little while back, URL for it is below me right here. The circuit breaker keeps tripping and we can't keep the lights on. So right now, what I'm doing is I'm running our generator with the power cord to the lights. First world problems. Speaking of first world problems, I'd like for you to subscribe to the channel if you would. It helps us help you. The more guys that we have subscribing to the channel, the better it is for us on YouTube because it shows that we're making big progress. So if you're subscribed to the channel and your buddy is subscribed to the channel, we start seeing more things happen for us on YouTube. Also, join our Patreon group. If you join our Patreon group at the $10 a month level, you get monthly meetings with me. We talk tech Q&A. We have a good time. It is a ball. Plus, there's other little things that we're doing as well. We're doing videos for the guys that are on the group. They get their own set of videos that are not in any way impacting what we do here on the normal channel because Andrew is producing those, and that's one of the reasons we have a Patreon group, because I wanted to bring Andrew on and help pay for his drinking addiction. I'm sorry, I keep going back there, but it's just too funny to me because he doesn't have a drinking problem. Much of a drinking problem. He really doesn't have a drinking problem. He doesn't. Okay, Mom, if you're watching, Andrew's fine. Blah, blah, blah. All right, so that's our show for the week, folks. Do me a favor, be kind to each other, love on each other, treat each other nice. We'll see you next time on Autorestomod. And maybe, just maybe by next Saturday, I'll have actual power from the power company running through the wires. They're running to this building, so we don't have to deal with bloody circuit breakers all the way down at the house. It's like 100 yards from here. Maybe not 100, maybe it's only 50. I'm an artist, sometimes I over-exaggerate things. So, that's it. Sorry I can't give you more. I'm gonna go turn the generator off so that I don't burn down Studio A. You guys have a great week, bye!